Hi, good morning. Good morning. Happy Friday. You know what I love? I love waking up to the news that Don Lemon is sitting in jail right now. Well, what can I say? What can I say? I'm really not a bitter conservative Christian patriot, but there is a part of me that is like, I'm not rejoicing, you know, but I'm rejoicing because it's about time that the arrests start happening against those who actually violated the Constitution, who actually used our government, our media, our political and social resources, who conspired, who defrauded the American people to perpetuate hoaxes on the American people, to form and pay for psyops that literally landed wonderful people in prison, American patriots in prison, and then or just ruined their entire lives. I mean, there's that too. So when you see Don Lemon, who finally, again, you got to remember he's been the initiator, the vocal initiator, administrator, perpetual purveyor of multiple hoaxes against the people of this country, not just Donald Trump, but the people of America. He's been a part of the largest PSYOP operation that any of us have ever been aware of, at least, and that was the stolen election of 2020. And thereafter, the you know the attack on regular people who questioned that, who dared to question that narrative. And if you questioned it, what were you called? You were called a domestic terrorist. And Don Lemon is one of those who pushed that narrative. He promoted it. He was paid to do it. I'm sure he did not mind, obviously. And I'm going to be very curious to see uh, his bank accounts and what they find in his wireless or wire fraud accusations. I'm very, very interested to be following this and see what's going on now. It's important to know he didn't just get arrested, you guys. He was found guilty by a federal grand jury. Okay, so this wasn't just Pam Bondi going on her own, going rogue, and going after Don Lemon. No, he was found guilty by a federal grand jury, and that is why he has been arrested, or excuse me, he was indicted by a federal grand jury. That is why he has been arrested. And for years I've heard people can indict a ham sandwich. I don't know if that's true. I have no idea. But today the ham sandwich is Don Lemon, and I'm hungry. Okay, we're going to eat today. And we are very happy about this because it is about time. I want to say too, Pam Bondi, of course, was the instigator of this. She has led the charge on this. I want to say Pam Bondi, apparently, whatever was preventing her from moving and acting on behalf of the American people, that strategy has been abandoned, and she is going full max way and taking down these corrupt people in this country who have sought to push away of the world order. Not America, not a constitutional republic, but a world order that is determined to enslave Americans. You can remember, it's been a while since we've been together, and I've got a lot of thoughts going on in my brain. I want to encourage everybody to hit the share button right now. We're going to be having our guest on in about 10 minutes. He's going to be joining us and telling an unbelievable story that, it's only believable if you've been living these last 6 years and watched what a government so big that can give you everything, give you all the social programs, give you thousands of dollars while you sit at home and wear masks. They can force injections on you. That can take your children away from you if you won't get those forced injections. A government like that, that's so big. Well, when they have had enough of you, they will come for you. And that's what today's story is about. Although there is an unbelievable level of resilience and victory in this story, we cannot forget. This is why we are supposed to be a constitutional republic. But there has been this effort by the world order to diminish the youngest child in this world, in this whole nation state world. We've been the rebels from day one. America has been the rebels from day one. I'm reading an incredible book. I keep talking about it because it's so good. It's called The Frontiersman by Eckert. It's an old book, and it's about the expansion basically of westward towards Ohio and Kentucky, and these amazing um, frontiersmen that were able to survey the land, map it out, fight the Indians, like take on really bad odds, horrible odds, and win. And it's very mind blowing. But a lot of fallacies are exposed in this historical book. Things, narratives that the world order has tried to put out about America, about our establishing and our founding, about our soul, like the soul of America, who we are, what we do, how we act, what we create. what we put forward into the world. Like so many of those narratives are completely diminished in this book. And I love it because I'm looking for the heroes right now. I am absolutely looking for the heroes, the disruptors, those who will not be allowed, they will not allow this world order, this darkness that some people call them the globalists, whatever, this deep state, to tell us to shut up and sit down. They won't allow it. That's the American spirit. That's the spirit that founded and built this country. And it's unique to this country. Like over abroad, they're all afraid to say what they really think. They talk for hours and days upon days about things they will never experience because they have forgotten what freedom feels like, what it tastes like, what it sounds like. And we haven't. We're so fresh off the boat still in America to what freedom is supposed to be. There's been a lot of I don't know what else to call them, but these psyops, which are doesn't mean red flag events, that doesn't mean they didn't happen. They absolutely happened, but they were done to strategically diminish our authority as American citizens. If you are an American citizen, you have so many, you enjoy all the benefits of God-given authority as established in the Constitution, but certainly not contained in the Constitution. It's expansive. It keeps going. All of these rights that God has given to us, all these privileges that God has bestowed upon us just for being born, just for being a human. And in America, we honor that. We realize that. And we're supposed to have judges in this country who also implement them in their rulings. But that has not been the case for more than 100 years, probably longer, but at least for the last 100 years, we've watched the diminishment of fundamental God given rights in this country be stripped down to literally now association will get you ransacked by the FBI, have them knocking at your door, and you this first thing we're going to talk about today is really about association and whether or not we have the right. Do we as Americans still have that right, that God-given right, the power of the right of association to be friends with who we want to be friends with, believe what we want to believe? I find it amazing because it used to be against the law to be a communist. Now they don't use this association issue with anyone except conservative Christian patriots now. That's it. Used to be against the law to be a communist. And if you were associated with communists, you would be literally going through interrogation. You would have your probably have your home raided, and they would, look to see if you really are a communist because it was against the law, and it still is against the law. But this whole idea of you get to associate who you want to, um, basically annihilated that whole effort to get rid of the communists here in America, who, by the way, were mostly all in Hollywood. Who's not shocked? I think we all know that. And government, but Hollywood primarily. And yet here we are having 6 years of guilt by association. Did you support President Trump? You're under investigation. Did you call out elections? Oh, you're under investigations. You didn't get a crime. The crime is association. And that's what we're going to find in our story today. But I have a couple things I want to walk through with you guys of breaking news that I think is really important. I want to make sure you all know, we've been involved in this effort to secure our elections across this country for 6 years now. And I, as the executive director of the Lindell Offense Fund, I worked with Mike Lindell now for 4 years. That's what I do. It's one of my main things in life that I do. And I want to make sure everybody knows what's going on right now. I want to give full credit to those who have been at the forefront of these efforts in Georgia. I want to look at Georgia for just a moment, and I want to just call out one of the most incredible people there, and who is really the reason that Georgia has blown open. He is the reason that the FBI was able to go in. That Tulsi Gabbard now knows, she wouldn't have been there. She didn't know that there was foreign interference in the Georgia elections. Okay. I want to just put it out that Garland Favorito, if you're not following his account on X, you need to. He has been at this for more than 15 years, calling out the horrible abuses in Georgia, the horrible election fraud in Georgia. I still remember meeting Garland for the first time at Mike Lindell's Cyber Symposium in Missouri, and I was really overwhelmed. He really is all that and more. He is all that in a bag of chips. This guy has been relentless, and now payday is coming. And none of this would be happening without Garland Favorito deciding this is the hill he's going to die on. He's going to make sure that Georgia has real elections because every state is so important, and the fraud that's happening in each state, once it's uncovered and exposed and obviously litigated against, and it finally goes to court and judges finally rule on it and people go to jail, all of that, that will pour over into the other states that have been doing the same criminal behavior. So California, Colorado, Arizona, Wisconsin. I don't know if there's a state in the union that hasn't had criminal election interference. But Georgia is so important because Garland has been keeping receipts for more than 15 years now. His case is what opened this all up. They had to keep the ballots. Garland Favorito is the one who was able to secure those ballots and make sure they did not get thrown away or, shaved up because there's a certain amount of time that the state has to hold the ballots. And they had come to that time. And obviously, Georgia was going to shred the ballots because that's what criminals do when they're trying to hide their tracks. Garland made sure by the litigation that he put forward, the cases that he brought forward, Linda Offense Fund, we supported him, we work with him, we love him. I'm here to sing his praises as it pertains to Georgia and what he's done there for the entire country. Garland Favorito, thank you for everything you're doing. Please be following his account. It's really important. But I want to point out what is it that we learned with what's going on here in Georgia. And I'm just going to take a couple minutes on this. I've posted everything to X right now, so you can absolutely go find it. But also, huge shout out to Jeff Clark. Remember the takedown of Jeff Clark, who should, I mean, I'm not being any more incredible. I'm just saying that Jeff Clark, before Pam Bondi was, selected by President Trump to run the FBI, to run the Bureau, I kind of thought, I wanted Jeff Clark. I advocated for Jeff Clark. I think he's incredible. He went up against Bill Barr. Remember, he worked for Bill Barr, and Bill Barr would refuse to investigate elections, and then they criminalized Jeff Clark for saying there should be an investigation on the 2020 election. They criminalized him. They went after him. They kicked him out of his career path. They tried to completely and totally destroy him, all because he said we should investigate the 2020 election. It literally was his job, and what's happened to him is just been unbelievable. But okay, hang on. I need to tell you guys exactly what's going on here. We've got Minneapolis happening. Obviously, I love that, but hopefully, I put this in a place where I can find it. Okay, I am going to refer you guys to my X right now, and that is the report of the investigation on Fulton County. Kevin Moncla has posted that up for everybody. The investigation for Fulton County general election. There is so much great information below, but I want to let you guys know. Oh man, I had this saved for you. I just wanted to go quickly through kind of the highlights of. Thank you. Here we go. The highlights of this case so far are largely based on procedural lapses like absent signature verification, unlawful memory card handling. We always talk about making sure that we have the record of who was handling what, where it was going. There appears to be and destruction, destroying records. They erased all of the ballots that had been stored in the computers, erased them all. There appears to be probable cause for a broader investigation, obviously, into malfeasance, vulnerabilities. And then, of course, everything that comes out of this is going to help us in the future with future elections. We know that. There's no doubt about it. But there's about 10 serious critical felony violations that happened in Georgia. Probably one of the most significant reasons we're all looking at it right now is because Georgia tried so hard. Their Secretary of State, nobody's talking for Brad Rosenberg in a minute. Anybody heard from him? Let me see him. Where are you? Keep on, Brian Kemp. Before all of this started, Brian Kemp, I know for a fact, let me give this to you right now. Brian Kemp was regularly communicating with Mike Lindell and regarding the 2020 elections, okay? Like, I know for a fact, and I've said it publicly, so when I we did the Rosenberg Awards, like the biggest career awards for a while there on Lindell TV, and something crazy happened. Something really crazy. And actually, I did save this. I need to read this straight from the mouth. Why do people not stand up for us? Why do we see elected officials go really weird on us? Well, I'm going to remind you of something that happened. I'm going to remind you of what happened to Brian Kemp after he publicly came out saying that something is wrong with the 2020 elections. Okay. Remember, Brian Kemp's daughter's boyfriend died in a tragic car wreck after the 2020 election. This was not a car wreck. It was a car explosion. Was that a car wreck? I don't know why they keep saying that. It was an explosion. It says when Brian Kemp was like interested in 2020, I'm not thinking what happened. Something's wrong with the elections. The daughter, from what I've heard, was supposed to be with the boyfriend all day. That's what I've heard. I don't know. Brian, can you tell us if that's accurate or not? And then The GBI special agent who was investigating the crime blow up, died at his home. I mean, would you be getting the message loud and clear? I think you'd be getting the message loud and clear. You'd be getting the message loud and clear that you are not allowed to investigate the 2020 election, and certainly not with such an authoritative, yeah, with an authoritative position as Governor Brian Kemp had in the state of Georgia. Nobody's heard from him. He's not talking. But they were blocking the feds from getting these boxes of ballots to start looking at them. You have more than 100,000 ballots, cast with no stubs versus population. So who are these people? What is this about? Because we're involved in elections, I want you to be paying attention to this. I want to spend one more minute on this. I want to remind you about Arizona before we get into our special guest today. Let me remind you about Arizona for a second. This was really interesting because I was like, Arizona's blowing up right now, right? They're the next state they're under investigation right now for all of their election tampering. We all knew it. We were watching it in real time. The Linda Offense Fund helped to fund a majority of Kerry Lake's defense. We had Kurt Altman, JAG attorney Kurt Altman. Kurt Altman. Oh my gosh, sorry, I did not mean to say that. Kurt Olson, who was investigating, or he wasn't investigating, but he was actually the head lawyer for that whole effort. He works with us at the Linda Offense Fund. And now he is representing at the White House in his own capacity directly under President Trump investigating the 2020 election. So super happy about that because he's getting to the bottom of everything right now. But Arizona, that election, 2020 governor race for Kerry Lake was stolen. Nobody has any doubts about it. Nobody has any doubts about it. People said, well, Kerry Lake, she was really bombastic. Well, the alternative was somebody that wasn't known as well. And I know that family and I know all the dynamics there. Great lady, wonderful. But definitely did not have the momentum that was behind Kerry Lake. Okay. That's just a fact. So we watched that election get stolen. Kerry Lake does not concede to the election. She does not concede. She never conceded. So we don't need, Professor Clements put out a post yesterday and said, hey, we need a special election immediately now that we've proven Arizona's election was stolen in 2020. Well, Kerry White said, hey, I never conceded. I don't need a special election. Put me in, coach. Arizona, America, Kerry Lake can literally step right in to her properly duly elected governor of the state of Arizona without a special election. So how do you like them apples? Do you know how many people are freaking out in Arizona right now? They're losing their minds right now, thinking, what is going to happen to them? Because if you find anything about Kari Lake, she takes no prisoners. She will not, has not, and my goodness, is she a great investigative journalist, a great investigative reporter. You know that she has everything. And, we haven't seen her too much. What's she been doing? Oh, you guys. Oh, you guys. I've been telling you guys, stop listening to the clickbaiters who are like, bring them out, just calling for violence and acting crazy and all that. Stop listening to those people. There are real things happening, but it's not that. There are real things happening that are going to change the direction and return us from a globalist takeover to the New World Order back to our sovereignty as a constitutional republic. One of those things that is needed to happen, though, of course, has been massive exposure. Everybody needs to understand what's been going on. It helps me a ton to understand this is not Republican, Democrat. I've seen a lot of, quote, Republicans who are the biggest cowards ever. We have Wayne Williams of Colorado, who established Dominion voting machines in 2013 and forced every one of the 64 counties to adopt it. In fact, several counties sued him. Well, he was a Republican. Republicans are supposed to be about freedom, not force. Well, there was Wayne Williams at the head of what would be the biggest scandal on the planet, which is Dominion voting machines. It's going to be the biggest scandal in the entire world because 138 countries have said no to Dominion. But Wayne Williams, a Republican, forced everybody to adopt it. Scott Gessler goes on after him. Sorry, Scott, I didn't mean to throw you, but that's just what happened. And what was going on there that they felt they needed to force everybody? So when people are like Republicans, Democrats, I don't really know that that's a thing anymore and probably hasn't been for some time. Essentially, what we have is those who are supporting the world order and those who are disrupting it and calling for sovereignty again. those who believe in nation states, who believe in the sovereignty and independence of a nation to do what it wants to do on its own, apart from the global community. It's why we don't support the EU. It's why I massively do not support Ukraine being a part of the EU. Ukraine joins the EU, it's over for them. They will never have freedom. They will just have transferred one dictatorial power, which I would say was a lot of the senators here in the United States of America, telling them what to do and forcing them to do things they didn't want to do, along with Barack Obama and Joe Biden, but whatever, to the EU, which has proven time and time again they're really just a little dictatorship trying to turn the heads of every country there. And God bless the countries that have stood against them. But we are here to establish the sovereignty of nations. Nations get to decide what they want to do. But I think that that's the war. I think the war is the New World Order. It's not new, I would say. The world order that is trying to take away the individuality and the sovereignty of our nations and all be one big nasty glob that just goes along with whatever the newest thing is that BlackRock or the Rothschilds want to do. And we just don't want to do it, you know? We don't want to do it. But in the days following, you guys, the days following the election of 2020 were some of the grimmest, darkest days ever. And I think at the time, I definitely was like, we had a movement going in Colorado, and it was a powerful movement, and people were standing up against the governor, Jared Polis, and it was a great day for us. We never experienced the benefit of President Trump, by the way. We had zero benefit of President Trump being in office in Colorado. Okay, so we were already used to just having the crap beat out of us. We got no relief. And so what does that do? Well, it raises up warriors. It raises up people who will fight against the government, which we should do when they are out of order. And that's what the citizens are supposed to do in a proper way, which is what we did. We rallied, we did everything lawfully, we were very effective and did amazing things. So after the election of 2020, there was obviously nationally a huge collective sigh of this can't possibly have happened. The most popular president in history, and here he is somehow losing to a man who never left the basement. And you guys remember that the guy never left the basement. They had to pay people to come and sit in the audiences to pretend Joe Biden had an audience. They've had to fabricate everything along the way to make it look like they were even running an actual election. Okay. So keeping that in mind, January, I remember watching the dates. Do you guys remember this? Watching the dates, they were telling us, okay, on this date, this is going to happen. Okay, everybody just hang tight. On this date, this is going to happen. We know there's going to be the inauguration. It's coming up on January 6th. I'm watching from home, and I'm just hoping that everything is good. I'm hoping everything's going to work out. I believe in a proper rule of government, so I didn't never think I should feel federal government that much anyway. So I wasn't like really hoorahing about President Trump or anything. I just figure, well, we're going to take care of it within our states. But there were people who really understood at that time. That was not me. There were other people who really understood at that time what was at play here and what was going to happen. And one of those people is, it's just unbelievable. He has written a book. It's called The Mouths of the Wicked. I'm going to be posting that up here in just a minute. I'm going to want everybody to be sharing this. Hit the share button right now. Make sure you're sharing this out on all the platforms that we're watching from right now. You know that we are regrowing again right now after being, pulled out again, but we just grow. It's fine. We do awesome. The Mouths of the Wicked. This is his personal story because my guest today is a man who gave much of his life to this country long before January 6th. And so he could see the writing on the wall and knew what was coming. And he went there to pray and support the real president of the United States, which we all know was Donald J. Trump. He is a veteran of the United States Navy. Lieutenant Commander Caldwell has honorably served our nation for nearly 2 decades. Primarily, he was within the Navy's intelligence community. He is a devout Christian. His beautiful wife, Sharon, is going to join us now on America's Mom to tell their story of why Commander Thomas Caldwell became the FBI's most wanted after January 6th. Good morning. Thank you guys for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having us, Sharona.
Thank you.
Absolute honor and privilege to have you guys here. I want to just get into this. Commander Caldwell, Sharon, thank you guys for being here. And those who are watching right now, I want to encourage you to be following them on X. I'm going to be posting up the book because you're going to want to read this. You're not going to believe it. You can't believe what our government is capable of truly if they decide you are an enemy of the state. Tom Caldwell, will you take us back to your life before January 6th? Walk us through your history with the government and your relationship with the government prior to January 6th.
Well, it was a wonderful life, especially after the Lord brought me together with this beautiful woman who's here on the screen with me, Sharon. We've been married for 26 beautiful years now. We had a couple of bad ones here lately because of the government, but I was a farm boy and I wanted always to serve my country. I'm the 9th generation of Caldwell men who have answered the call of our country. I joined through NROTC. I always say that NROTC stands for Navy Rips Off Tom Caldwell. One of the things that you find in the military is they send you places you don't want to go and you can't come back when you're ready. I didn't have a glorious John Wayne career. I characterize mine as more of a McHale's Navy career. Sure, I had a couple of times when there were some death-defying acts and there were some real dangerous days, but most of the time I did spend as a naval intelligence analyst, doing fusion intelligence analyst, that is taking things from disparate reporting mechanisms, whether it's satellites or human sources or electronic, and trying to figure out what the bad guys are doing. Taking that information, then giving it to the decision makers in Washington, D.C., at the various commands where the Navy is run from, and also for our ships at sea and our forces forward deployed. I had high-level security clearances. I got to see a lot of things, and I was upset by a lot of the things that I saw that the government did. But as a good officer, I did my thing. I was proud to serve you and all of the American people. And when the Clintons decided to draw down the active duty forces, I was caught up in that. Otherwise, I'd still be serving if my country wanted me. I came back to the farm. I always say I joined the Navy to see the world. I saw it. They shot at me. I didn't like it. I came back to the farm. And so Sharon and I were living on this lovely little generational farm that we call our own now, just raising cattle and native species of plants right here on the farm. It was a beautiful, idyllic time.
So what happens? President Trump loses the 2020 election, and you decide what after that?
Well, we said, I've seen a lot of elections in my time, and sometimes my guy wins, and sometimes my guy doesn't win. When we found out that there was going to be a rally at which the president would speak, and this was actually publicized in December of 2020, Sharon and I decided, hey, let's go and show our support. Let's listen to the president. It is, after all, an historic moment. The last presentation, the last speech of a president on his way out of office. We had never seen him at a rally before. We thought this would be a great time. We certainly didn't go there to protest. We went there to support.
Yeah, I would say that, we really questioned whether we should go to January 6th or not, partly because we're not young. Tom has some pretty serious back issues. It's hard for him to stand all day long out in the cold and those types of things. But we don't live that far from DC, about 70 miles away. And we thought, well, it's relatively close. We'd never seen President Trump live at a rally. And I really wanted to go primarily just by my presence. I saw that as a way to thank him, thank him for his service. I really, by January 6th, sort of resigned myself to thinking, okay, Joe Biden's going to be our president. Now, I wasn't happy about that, but that was in my head. Okay, it didn't go our way this time. But I still wanted to go and be there by my presence to just sort of honor President Trump, say goodbye to him and thank him. I couldn't personally thank him, but I just thought, I hope they have a great turnout for President Trump. And that's really why we went, was to listen to him and see him.
Well, frankly, too, it wasn't a huge distance, right, for you guys to travel.
Right.
It wasn't like you came 3,000 miles. You're
Right.
close to an absolutely historic day. I mean, we all watched on TV. I watched January 6th. I knew this was a historic day, and I was curious what kind of comments President Trump was going to make. And I wanted to see how many Americans were going to make their way to the Capitol that day. And you made the decision to be there. And what did you do when you were there?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
What did we see when we were
Oh,
there?
well, yeah,
Well,
during I'm sorry, you cut out a little bit there. We did go to the Ellipse to listen to the president, and it was amazing.
It's a love fest.
Yeah, so many people, most of the people that I talked to from all over the country and actually other countries as well, were felt the way we did, which was, this is sad. President Trump didn't win, but people just wanted all legal votes to be counted. It's like, can we just please have some assurance as Americans that there was no hanky-panky, that all legal votes were counted. And if all legal votes were counted and no votes were counted that should not have been counted, then okay, let the result be the result. And that was pretty much universal, everybody I talked to. But the mood, at least when we met people at the Ellipse and walking from the Ellipse to the Capitol, was, even though we were sad about the potential outcome, people were still upbeat. It was still a love fest. It wasn't, people were not. It was good. It was really just wonderful meeting people from all over the country that were, thought the same way we did. It was just kind of encouraging.
Well, and at the Ellipse, it was a morning of singing patriotic songs with thousands and thousands of people that we had never met. And we were there, I think, all for the same reason. There's a lot of misinformation floating around even now about that day and about that time. There were hundreds of thousands of people there to support the president. No one was violent. The reason that we went to the Capitol, which was a long slog for a guy like me who drags his leg part of the time, my spine is held together by rods and screws by virtue of my honorable service to our nation. And I do it again. That shows you how crazy I am. But the main reason we went down there was because the president said, now let's go to the Capitol. Many people don't know that a lot of conservative and Christian speakers were scheduled to give addresses on the Capitol grounds that day. In fact, Mayor Bowser of DC had issued permits for the same, and there were temporary stages set up to facilitate those presentations to whoever wanted to come and listen. And so that is the main reason, or those two things are the main reason, I believe, that people were moving in that direction down to the Capitol. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that some goofy people didn't do some bad things, but what I am saying is we didn't do anything. In fact, we didn't even go on the Capitol grounds until after all of Congress had left the building.
Which is significant, right? Because that was a huge part of the weaponization process, was declaring that you guys had disrupted congressional meetings and put these people basically in fear for their lives. But I mean, your story you're telling seems pretty normal. I've been to DC quite a few times. I mean, people walk from those places you're talking about, the mall to the Ellipse. I mean, it happens every day, thousands of times a day. So, I mean, you got to help me here, and those who are listening to this story. You not only eventually, after this day, everything seemed peaceful to you guys. I guess before I ask this, did you see any violence at all that day? Did you get caught up in that? Was there any around you eventually? What happened in your personal testimony that you saw that day?
We did not see any violence that day. Sharon and I spent most of the day at a place called the Peace Fountain, which is not even on Capitol grounds. I got to tell you, my back was throbbing pretty hard. We have the most extensive photographic and videographic record of what we did that day of anybody you will ever see. And there's no violence in the over 200 photos and the multiple videos that we took that day. No violence whatsoever. So we didn't understand when we left and we got back to where we were spending the night, which was a hotel over in Virginia that night, because it was going to be a long drive back to the farm. We could not understand the reports that were coming out of the media, which incidentally all presented the same sound bites, the same statements. We just couldn't understand it because we said, what? We were there. We didn't see any of this stuff. When did this happen? So we were mystified. It was a couple of weeks later that the government surprised us in a pre-dawn SWAT raid on our farm that we were in the crosshairs of anyone. I think it's important to point out that anytime somebody, whether it's a government or any kind of a powerful organization, wants to put forth a narrative that gets people all riled up, they have to find a group to focus people's ire upon. And so the Biden administration actually picked a couple. One was called the Oath Keepers, and one was called the Proud Boys. Now, the former I know a little bit about, And the latter I know much less about. But the Oath Keepers, as we have come to understand, even before January 6th, is composed of veterans and current and former law enforcement and first responders. Those are the kind of people that I really appreciate and honor. And that day, and the government knew this and has covered it up, they were on the scene working with the Secret Service to provide security for conservative speakers, not only at the ellipse, but as they made the slog down Pennsylvania Avenue to get to their appointed places to speak to the crowd again on the Capitol grounds. They knew this, the government knew this, and yet they tried to frame these guys and gals as a group of wackos, militia, whatever. So people would say, well, Tom, how'd you get involved in that? They claimed that you, Tom, were the commander of the Oath Keepers. Not true. I never belonged to that organization.
So this is where it gets very interesting for you. So that day, I want to just recap for everybody. If you're joining us just now, we have Commander Tom Caldwell and his beautiful wife, Sharon, not only caught up in January 6th, although they witnessed no violence that day, had no idea anything had even happened, and don't know anything was wrong until several weeks later when the FBI raids their home in an early morning armed raid and completely begins the process of destroying their lives. But it's more than that. They decided that you were the one who master planned this whole thing out. How did that happen? How did you become the person that they decided planned any violence there was on January 6th?
It's the craziest thing, and you can't even make this stuff up. We didn't understand for a long time. We didn't find out until they started coming up with supposed evidence. It turns out that Sharon and I had actually met a couple of members of the Oath Keepers prior to January 6th in connection with what was called the Million MAGA March in November after the election results had come out. Again, a rally in support of the president. Well, people who are watching this podcast understand that veterans frequently refer to other veterans by the rank that they held on active duty. So I met one particular lady, a member of the Oath Keepers, as I said, who was actually a veteran of a Ranger battalion in Afghanistan. You want to talk about a hero. And I said, look, you're from a long ways away. If you ever come back to DC, we're a couple of oldsters. At least I'm an oldster. She's significantly younger than I. But if you ever find yourself broken down on the Capitol Beltway, give me a honk. Give me a call. And so she walked away. She had my number in her phone, but I didn't realize until we saw the discovery evidence from the Department of Justice that she had put me in her phone by my rank, Commander Tom. So when they flashbanged and attacked her house and seized her phone, they saw people that were listed there, and they saw Commander Tom within 2 hours. The FBI lead agent had a judge's signature on an arrest warrant for me as Commander Tom, the commander of the Oath Keepers and the commander of the attack on the U.S. Capitol. It sounds insane, and it is insane.
And I just would like to add, so, when we went to January 6th together, Tom and I, we were side by side the whole day. So when about 2 weeks later after January 6th, and we came home, we just went back to our lives. We didn't think anything of it, knowing that, we did not enter the Capitol building. We were not involved in any violence. We just did our thing. We came home, went back to our lives. When the FBI raided our home about 2 weeks later, we were both very surprised that happened. I don't know why they couldn't have just knocked on our door and said, hey, can we talk to you about January 6th to find out, a little more about what actually happened? But they didn't do that. They just, assumed a lot of things that were not true. But I knew something smelled bad from the start because they went after Tom and not me. Yet we had done exactly the same thing. So that from the start was strange. And then as we started, this whole thing started to unravel, that Tom was arrested on January 19th, 2021, taken away, thrown into a terrible, awful jail in Virginia. We eventually got him out. He was there for about 2 months. But, we eventually learned that when they came to arrest Tom, this was very much what should be chilling, I think, to every American, this was very much a situation of arrest first, fish for a potential crime later. Because when they came to our house, they had no idea what we had actually done on that day. What we did do, what we did not do, they didn't know. They didn't know anything about Tom. They did not know he was a veteran. They did not know. The FBI did not know that Tom used to work for the FBI. I mean, they knew nothing because they did zero, almost zero investigation before arresting him. So that's what should chill every American. They can come and arrest you first and fish and try to find a crime. And that's what happened to us. And it's very, very scary.
Is that a consequence of the Patriot Act?
Well, who's to say? I think what it really is a consequence of the thing called the Strategic Implementation Plan for Countering Domestic Terrorism. You'll remember that the Tulsi Gabbard has made that thing public. She did that shortly after President Trump was inaugurated. That thing was being built in November and December of 2020 while President Trump was still in office, by the same people that made that transition in the intelligence community and in various departments and administrations in the United States government. And in that, what was significant, what your viewers are going to want to know, is that it represented the first time in American history that our government prioritized investigating and neutralizing U.S. citizens over foreign terrorists and their operations in this country. And they prioritized what they called religious zealots, people who question anything that had to do with COVID or the COVID lockdowns. They prioritized people who protested at abortion clinics. They prioritized people who raised their voice at PTA meetings because they were concerned about the indoctrination of our children. It's all in writing, and it's there for anybody to read. Actually, I've tried to get an op-ed published about this, but as you can imagine, the lamestream media like the Washington Times, Washington Compost, they're not interested in that kind of a thing. Even though I'm an intelligence guy, I think I know how to do the research and bring things in a compelling way. At least I think I do.
Well, speaking of compelling, and I don't want to shy away from the violence that the FBI under Merrick Garland and Chris Wray, under the Biden administration, under this, world order, that people like you were not allowed to deviate from. They had a plan, and all those categories that you just listed were contrary to that plan. And what's the first thing you need to do? You need to get rid of the dissidents so that you can enact your plan. Right. And I think overall, as we've watched President Trump work so hard to restore order again, to restore the republic, and it's taking a massive amount of effort, obviously, because there are so many people, like you just said. I hope people really caught that. While President Trump was still in office, this team was being established to go after everyday Americans who were not going to be on board with this transition to the new order. And that's the threat that you posed. I want to share a little bit from the book. I'm going to try not to cry because I'm just like, the book is very emotional. I'm trying to get through a lot of it in a short amount of time. And I think that's the best thing to do. But to be honest with you, because I'm just like, to realize that many people trust government the way they trust their parents. And even though we've been told government is a necessary evil, they still choose to look at Big Daddy. Government is Big Daddy. He'll take care of you. And to see this obvious switch in treatment to American citizens, as you beautifully and eloquently laid out, has been devastating to the psyche of America. And I want people to know what it looks like really and truly when you've been pushed to the edge by the government. You've been a law-abiding man. You've supported and lived for your country, willing to die for your country, sacrifice the best years of your life, and literally have physical infirmities now because of your service to this country. And I want to read this portion. This is page 92 of the book, guys, when you get the book and you're reading it. And it's because you're already incarcerated, and we'll talk about that too, but you're already incarcerated. You've done everything right. You've heard for the first time the accusations against you, which are just absolutely outrageous and insane. And you say in here, okay, you've come back, they put you back in your cell, okay? And you say, the carefree life of the Friday night CO crew rolled along outside my still door. I called out over and over with no response. The eye in the sky leered down at me, and I was getting very angry at this newest insult to me as a human being. They put you in solitary confinement. After an illegal imprisonment, brutal treatment, lying accusations before a magistrate and a so-called judge, and a second denial of your release. You say I was royally pissed off. This was the moment the beast welled up in me. After the hours being forgotten, I had finally had enough. Mr. Nice Guy was gone. And you say in here, my ears and my face grew scalding hot with anger, and I let it happen. I'd learned a few things during my time in hell, and I unleashed them now. It was no challenge to mule kick a door, even with shackles on my ankles. I reveled at the crashing sound bouncing along outside this vault. I raised up a vociferous, cursing tirade about my treatment and about the nature of my keepers mere steps away. I don't think people can understand what it is like to have done and lived the way that you have, and others who were given similar treatment, to have your government pursue you, try to destroy you, torture you, ignore you, and leave you literally in the pages to come, you'll read in this book, to die. Tell me about your time in the prison.
Well, that was a particularly rough part. And I will say this to anybody who's considering reading the book. Look, I wrote this book as it unfolded, including with notes that I was able to smuggle out of the prison to Sharon, so she would have some kind of something to hold on to know what had actually happened inside there. I didn't write this in the wonderful, warm afterglow of the victory that the president would first give to us, but our Lord and Savior ultimately provided for us. I wrote this as it happened, so there's a lot of my misery there. It's hard to go back and put yourself in that same moment, but when you have notes, you can flash yourself back there. And I wanted to share with people. I wanted to take them by the hand and let them see the truth. Let them see what goes on in the dark places far away from them that they can't see. I can't be the only person who was ever mistreated in prison. And I know I'm not the only one who was mistreated in prison who was charged with this J6 buffoonery. But let's just say this. I spent 53 days incarcerated. Now, that's nothing compared to what some people spent in terms of day by day. There were people that spent a couple of years in there, but the guards made sure that this took me to the very limits of my ability to deal with it. I mean, I was 66 years old, a disabled veteran when they threw me in there. The first thing that they did was deny me all the medications, notions, potions, and lotions that keep me ambulatory and able to function as a member of society. I was only locked up for 53 days, but 49 days were in brutal solitary confinement, where I was tortured. I don't use that word lightly. Light and sound, flashing torture, all kinds of eerie sounds being pumped in at high decibels into this little tomb, a 6x9 concrete box with a solid steel door on one end and no windows. And then they come in and they beat you. And worse physical abuse than just beatings. Decorum keeps me from talking about them here. But
you do outline them in the book, though.
I do, some of them. And when that didn't work, they plunged me into total darkness. Now, there's a lot of people smarter than me that have done studies that say that when you're incarcerated in a box like that in total darkness, after a few minutes, you start to lose it and your brain is permanently rewired. And so that's the very definition of torture. I mean, the Mandela Act talks about not keeping people in solitary confinement. But it wasn't until I was in there that I understood the depravity that goes on in these prisons, far from where you and I would normally see, because we don't know anybody probably that's been incarcerated, and that the worst of it happens at the boot heels and the fists and the billy clubs of the guards. It's not the other inmates that are doing it to you. And so it was very, very tough. And Sharon was my only lifeline. Occasionally we would be able to speak without people just listening in all the time. They would roll an old style payphone on casters to the solid steel door, flop down this little slot that looks like a mail slot in the doors of many of the houses of the people watching this. And I would get on my knees and balance and pull in this too short cord and be able to hear her beautiful voice. And we prayed together a lot. And it was her reminding me, and it was the word of God that appeared in the pages of an old tattered Bible that I was able to get after about 37 days of incarceration and there being denied every time, that reminded me that, as it says in Philippians 4, 6, and 7, with everything, through prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. And God will hear you and God will move. He doesn't always move in my timing. Certainly not. He didn't just yank me out of there like I was doing an ejection seat out of a fighter plane, but he did hear. And I hoped that he heard. And it was hard to find something to thank him for when all I could see was misery. But I turned to the fact that, hey, I haven't been beaten up today, Lord, so you must have had a hand in that. And also I thanked him for the wonderful years that Sharon and I had together. And I just wanted to see Sharon again, even if I were to shuffle off this mortal coil.
The thing that I'm taking away so far from your book is this reality of God, and that how you rejoiced when you realized he sees you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That was another like, tearful moment, because
we couldn't have gotten through without God. And we suffered a lot, but we try not to view ourselves as victims, although we were victimized, but we try not to, because God has been so good and he was there with us every step of the way, still is. I did want to mention just a couple of things about Tom's book. As you mentioned, it is raw, it is emotional, but it's also very factual. And Tom does bring the receipts. When he says so-and-so perjured themselves, or suborn perjury, or they did this, or they did this dirty trick or that dirty trick, Tom points you to the transcripts where that happened. He has endnotes, he has footnotes, he has everything very well documented, which I think is important. So it's not just emotion, it is also, he does bring the facts. And I think what is also a little bit different in terms of the book that Tom wrote is Tom was incarcerated for almost 2 months. And again, many J6ers have just horrendous stories like ours. Many were incarcerated much longer, spent much longer in these horrible prisons and jails. What's different about, I think, his story and our story is that once even Tom got out, he details what we had to do to prepare for trial. He details going to a 10-week jury trial in DC. Most J6ers took plea deals. Most did not go through a jury trial because they knew they weren't going to come out well. And even others that did go through a jury trial, it might have been 2 days, 3 days, maybe a week. It wasn't 10 weeks long. And he details what happened from the end of the trial to his sentencing. And so there is just more information in the book about what the DOJ prosecutors did before, during, and after trial, what the judges did before, during, and after trial, again, with Tom's receipts. And so I think that makes his story a little bit different, because it sheds a light on not just the prison time, but what happened in these kangaroo courts in DC in ways that maybe other J6ers were not able to talk about.
You bring us to a really important conclusion here, and that is, what now? I mean, literally, your book could serve as the this is the map. These are the people. This is what happened. They don't even need to do the research themselves. General Dillon has opened up investigations into the federal prisons across the country on the treatment. Part of that is spurned by January 6th complaints, as well as Tina Peters in Colorado. But now what? Since President Trump has been back in office, are you satisfied with the direction the administration has taken to try to right these wrongs? Is it enough? What would you like to see more of? How do we somehow make things right for those who were targeted, weaponized against, and ultimately attempted to be destroyed by their own government?
I think that, like most people, we're impatient. We're impatient to see people held to account. There has to be some accountability. I wouldn't want anybody who did this to me to suffer this. That's not where I come from, as a Christian. But we hope that Pam Bondi and Kash Patel can get on the ball. We pray for them, and we hope that this will come around, and that it will be exposed. And the most important thing is to make sure that it never happens again. Because if we let these people that did this go away unscathed, if we let this kind of tyranny stand without some kind of accountability or punishment, it will come up again. And I will say, if you'll permit me, the major thing I wanted to do with this book, and everything that Sharon said is germane, it's true. And we have enough in there for criminal referrals. We do. We have everything there, all the research. Ed Martin can pick it up. Harmeet Dillon can pick it up and have arrest warrants ready by the end of the day if they want to. But the most important thing I wanted to do is I wanted to give all glory to God, because what I learned about the goodness of God and his favor through this tumultuous time is amazing. And I hope that I properly represented it. How many miracles, how many of the stories in the Bible had relevance for Sharon and me. And as we prayed to God, and I would point out that this wasn't a backup plan. This was the first plan. We went to the Lord immediately because we knew that truth and innocence didn't mean anything when all of the institutions of man had broken down. They betrayed us, but the Father did not. I consider it now as maybe God is a do it again kind of God, where I could say, God, you helped David beat Goliath. What Goliath is bigger than an incredibly weaponized federal government? You did it for him. Can you do it for me? You broke open the prison walls for Silas and for Paul, and he did it for me. I saw it. There was no reason that I should have been able to get out of prison, but he brought us a new attorney, the right attorney, to say the words that God would have him say to soften the heart of the same judge who denied my release before. And all of the things that happened in between. Gosh, I had the best result out of anybody who refused to take a plea deal and went to one of those rotten courts in DC. I was up against 5 felonies. The DOJ was undefeated 65-0 before we went in. And yet the Lord brought us victories there. Now, it wasn't total victory because I had to learn a lot along the way. God really does things in his timing. And I will say this, people will find out if they read this book, I might give the answer. There's not a spoiler alert, but I might give the answer to the greatest question of all time. Why does God answer my prayers? Well, I had to learn that it took a lot of time. He wanted to make changes in me. I had faith and I had hope, and they were all challenged. But if I could stay the course and learn perseverance and develop more character, as the Bible says. I mean, it's one thing to be a character, but it's something else to have more character and to learn to forgive even the people who kicked me in the, if you'll pardon the expression, crotch over and over again when I was shackled, members of the U.S. Marshal Service. When I could forgive them, then I could begin to heal because I could pull their claws out of me. And Sharon and I, hey, we've lost a lot. We've lost our time. We've lost our monies, and we had to sell a lot of the things that we owned to pay legal fees, but we're richer in many ways than we've ever been. We're more in love than we've ever been. And our faith for and our love for our Lord and Savior is stronger than ever. So that's one of the reasons why Sharon says, yeah, we were victimized, but we ain't victims.
But I think more needs to be done, though, in my opinion, in terms of what now. The White House put together this wonderful January 6th website, if you will, which I think has some good information on there. But more needs to be done to tell the truth of January 6th. And I think more needs to be done to help the victims of January 6th than what we've seen so far. So I keep praying for that. We need accountability. A lot of folks that did this are still working at the FBI and the DOJ and nothing, and I'm concerned because I think that they may be a cancer and are going to try to disrupt the president's agenda wherever they can. And so it's not, we're not after revenge at all. It's just shining a light on what really happened. And I think that needs to be exposed more, and people still need help.
And to your point, they already demonstrated there was a cancer in Trump's previous administration as well that allowed all of this to happen while he was presiding. They were putting this plan together. I mean, that is just wild to really consider.
Sometimes we refer to it as he had a staph infection. STAFF.
I mean, truly, that's exactly still the whisperings that we hear, that I'm hearing as well. what do you think as far as your own personal journey? What are you willing to do at this point? I mean, have you considered a lawsuit against the federal government or any of the players that personally assaulted you, stepped past those bounds? What do you think you're willing at this point to do personally, or is it a group effort? Obviously, we met through Cynthia Hughes and that incredible organization that she has done, the Patriot Freedom Project, and it's evolving into supporting those who have been weaponized against the federal government at every level. But this is special. Your case is special. And President Trump hasn't minced words that the government weaponized against you.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah, we would be willing to do a lawsuit. We'll see what happens with that. We have filed what's called a notice of claims against the government. So we'll see. Our goal would be to try to get that settled without having to do a formal lawsuit. But if we have to, we have to.
okay.
And I just, yeah. So we'll see what happens. I think more importantly, though, I just think it's important for us to just keep trying to tell our story. Because I really want to educate people and let them know that this can happen to you. If it can happen to us, it can happen to you. And people need to understand how fragile our system is and how it really has not been working for most Americans. And it's gotten bad. It's gotten really bad where they can arrest first and try to fight a crime later. I mean, that's communism. That's where we were going. And so I think it's really important for people to understand not just what happened to us, but what happened to other J6ers, what happened to people protesting at abortion clinics, all these things where the government has come down on people where they should not have, on citizens who really were just plain old exercising their First Amendment rights. And, you hear a lot of that today with, Don Lemon being arrested and all this stuff. Oh, it's First Amendment rights, it's First Amendment rights. Why can he have, First Amendment rights, but we weren't allowed to? Yeah, and that's what drives us crazy. It's like this double standard, and that has to change. That has to change. It needs to be the same for everybody under the law.
Well, the one very, very huge distinction I would add about the Don Lemon case is that he was indicted by a federal grand jury. There was process and procedure followed before they went and arrested him, which you did not receive. You had zero process and procedure done. They simply utilized force. And then, as you said, decided to try to find something later on, which of course was false. So that's a massive distinction. That's a massive distinction between law and order and weaponization. So I'm glad you mentioned that because it's ridiculous. These New World Order people are just unbelievable. The book, you guys, is called The Mouths of the Wicked, a true January 6th story of corruption, persecution, survival, and absolute victory. Tom, Commander, I'm going to have you back on again, and Sharon, to talk about victory and what that
I'm
really
sorry, you
looks
broke
like.
up just a little bit, Sharon. One more time, please.
Oh, no problem. I want to have you guys back on again to talk about how do we really overcome serious situations like this. I've been around enough too with survivors of government retaliation to know it's really hard being like myself. Sometimes I am just like, the flesh comes out strong, Commander. The flesh comes out strong. So we're going to have you back on again. And until then, everybody go buy the book. It is The Mouths of the Wicked. Today, you can find it at puffinpublishers.com. Go get it today, guys, or bookbaby.com. Thank you so much for being with us. Sharon, you are a beautiful example of a steadfast and absolutely loving wife. Thank you also for the role that you played in this to get Commander through this.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rhonda.
Wow. I hope if you were having a bad day, it just got significantly better because you have not had your groin kicked in by U.S. Marshals and left to lay and bleed out on the floor. Yeah. If that's not you, you're having a better day than Commander Caldwell was having under the weaponization of Biden's DOJ. And, it's that same theme over and over again. A government that's big enough to give you everything you want can take everything that you have. Targeting the person and then finding a crime later, which is exactly what happened with our family too. This is so counter to the way this country was supposed to be running. It's so counter. The government is not supposed to be able to use their authority and their force to target an American citizen. This is not the way it's supposed to go. Now, we've heard of stories throughout the years. I think of Ruby Ridge. I see that story in an entirely new light now. I see Waco, Texas in an entirely new light now. Like we know what we were fine. We know the narrative we were told. And then when we actually do our own research and talk to the people who were there, we realize this is not what happened. And I think it's extremely important, guys, that I don't want everything that's said. I don't want everybody to feel like conspiracy land over everything. There are things that are true and we hold on to. I hold on to the foundational principles, how things are supposed to run, so that when you see something not working right, you know, because they're not following foundational principles. And we can rein that back in. We know exactly what needs to be changed. If you don't know founding principles, if you haven't read our Constitution in a minute or two, go back to the basics. That's where we need to start. You got a lot of people running around with outrage circus, not even knowing though what the foundation is. They're just mad. They're mad because government is out of control. That's true. But how are we supposed to temper government? How are we supposed to keep them under control, under the authority of the citizenry? How are we supposed to do that? How is government supposed to operate? We won't know that if we don't start doing our research. Get off of 30-second clickbait reels and actually start reading books. I'm going to recommend it one more time. It is a very emotional, very passionate. If you are looking for an excellent read that really gets your blood flowing and just makes you think, holy cow. And also, as I've said repeatedly, you're looking for a hero, you're going to find a hero. You're going to find a couple heroes in this book, and it is absolutely outstanding. I think, especially mamas who are schooling your kids at home, your high school kids, get this book. Get this book. They need to see what the ramifications are for a government that is too big to fail. The book is The Mass of the Wicked. Go pick it up today, guys. So it's been a minute. It's a little bit long today. I have any guests joining us. So today is collagen, and the minerals and thermobrew and all that kind of stuff. But probably my favorite guest on the planet, my favorite person on the planet has agreed to come and be on with me today because again, the whole reason we started America's Mom and the Mister, and we were doing our show for so long before we got sued by the trannies was because it's super fun to listen to our conversations. I think they're really fun. And the Mister is such an out of the box thinker. He's a thinker and a doer. It comes together really, really good. And after 31 years together, we think we did some really good stuff. So right now, I mean, I'm gonna get out of it. As soon as I see his face back right here again, thankfully we're in the same place. Okay, as soon as he's ready to go. We have a lot to talk about today. In addition to the weaponization of government, incredible, incredible couple, okay? Absolutely incredible couple. If you're looking for couple goals, look no farther than Tom and Sharon Caldwell. What an amazing, that's what you need. You need a ride or die. You need someone who's going to have your back and fight for you. If you don't have that, I'm so sorry for you. I have that. I have that with the Mister. It's been a really wild, fun ride the last 7 years. Of course, we've had our ups and downs as everybody has, but I think that you're missing out so much if you don't have that person you can count on and lean on in life that God has definitely given to you as you're walking down this wild, adventurous road that God has put before you. I think it's just absolutely biggest gift ever, and I hope that you have that. We're getting close to Valentine's, so while the Mister's getting his stuff together, I want. Is he there? Okay, okay. As soon as he's ready, are you ready? You ready? No? Okay. While he's getting his stuff together, tell me when you're ready, please. While he's getting it together, we've been together for like 31 years. Are you ready? Hang on, I'm going to bring you on if you're ready. All right, here we go. I hope you're ready. Are you there?
Well, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, well, there we go.
Okay, are you going to turn your camera sideways or no?
Am I going to turn it sideways?
Oh, you know what? Never mind. Oh, that's so much better. Okay. I'm going to flip you. No, actually, I think we're good. Yeah? There we go. Okay, so it's been a little minute, and I hope you caught some of that conversation that we just had with Commander Caldwell, because it's just an unbelievable story. And you talked about weaponization. I know we know a thing or two, but not to this caliber and not to everybody being in on it. Like the story, the idea that all of these different agencies have people within them who are willing to subvert your natural rights, your constitutional protections in order to have a piece of skin in order to, I don't know, take out their fury on an individual. It's just amazing to me. People ask, how does it possibly happen that a government gets taken over? How can there possibly be thousands of people in on this? Well, it's that they're not willing to do anything. They're not willing to do anything. That's why there's such thing as whistleblowers, because it's generally like 10% of the population that will do anything about anything. What do you think?
Well, yeah, that's what we're seeing now. I mean, we're seeing it from the left and the right. The left brings in the problem and creates it, and then the right gets in and says, "Oh, we'll solve it. How are we going to solve it? By more government, and we'll solve it by putting federal police on the streets and policing neighborhoods, and just beefing up the government like they always do." I, for one, am tired of it. I'm tired of the narrative. I'm tired of the problem, reaction, solution type of stuff. I think people need to become more independent, more self-motivated, more get up off the recliner and let's get our communities figured out. And let's, get our local county figured out. Let's get our state figured out. I just think that we're setting ourselves up here once again for another round of police state. Now, people really quickly forget what happened in 2020 and beyond. And really we could start back to 9/11 if you guys all want to, but what all this has been leading up to is a complete takeover, 15-minute cities, have everybody just compliant, doing exactly what they're told, that kind of thing. In 2020, this came to an apex where we decided we would let federal officials control local officials, use them as Gestapo into telling us that we cannot go to the park with our kids. We can't walk around outside without a mask. We can't go to grandma's funeral. And the list goes on and on. We will let you come in and shut down our business because we are non-essential. I was a government employee at the time, and it was horrendous. The inside conversations that were going on with judges, with directors, with government officials, talking about how important they were and how non-essential everybody else was, and how we were going to make sure that people were not going to be able to provide for their families. You couldn't walk into a grocery store and get a gallon of milk without being, having your people spit in your face, tell you, they hope you get COVID and die. We had local sheriffs, local police walking into businesses, telling them we're shutting you down. We're putting chains and locks around your gym doors so people can't work out, but we're making sure to leave liquor stores and pot shops opened. This was all done under the strong arm of the local law enforcement, who all turned into Gestapo at the time. So I just want to remind everybody of that, because we're entering into a new era of that, where we say, what are we going to do? There's illegals, wandering the streets, causing havoc in our communities. We better get more law enforcement and more federal agents to police our streets and get these people off. Just remember, the same strong-armed enforcement that's used against them will eventually get used against you. Now, I'm not claiming to have all the answers right now. I'm just saying I'm quite struck by how quickly we forgot that people were being arrested at beaches and people were being forced to not go to church. Churches caved to homosexual governors and let those homosexual governors decide when and how you should go to church and practice your faith. All these things happen, and the only way they have power, it's actually two ways. One is the first one and the most important one. If you believe they have power over you, then they have power over you. Number two, how do they exert that power that you believe they have over you? They exert it, or they display it through local law enforcement. So local law enforcement becomes, whether they have good intentions or not, doesn't matter. Whether they know it or not, doesn't matter. They become the Gestapo, our modern day Gestapo. So I just think we need to be very careful about how we're moving forward here and who we're cheering on, because the ones that we cheer on now to take these fights against the left will eventually be used against, Christians, the church, good-hearted, conservative Americans. So that's kind of where I stand with it right now. It's crazy. There's been so much that's gone on, and we've been doing a lot of things behind the scenes.
Wait.
Go ahead.
I must have a moment to rebut. But not fully.
Do it.
But slightly on the ICE issue and what you're talking about there specifically. And I there's a healthy tension that has to be there. People have to be saying what you're saying because government needs to be kept in check so that they are not able to weaponize their agencies against Americans like they clearly did for the last 6 years. I mean, there's just no denying it. There's no way to get around it. The American political system weaponized itself against everyday Americans. There is no denying that. I just want to put this out there. Not, I don't need to be an apologist for anybody, but I would just say this. With ICE, there are constitutional principles, obviously, that warrant ICE to do what they're doing. So I want to make sure people understand there's nobody being detained without a warrant. A warrant is being there. ICE actually can't even enter into a home without a valid judicial search or arrest warrant that specifically names the person or the address. And you've seen they've gotten it wrong a couple of times, which is really interesting to me because the person had to verify that they were who was on the warrant, which made me wonder if people were using false names, which is very possible. We haven't gotten to hear the rest of the story on those two cases like that, and I'm very curious because I do think people were using a false name. But we haven't heard about that yet. It does not allow for forced entry. ICE cannot do forced entry on the homes without a warrant, but it actually says specifically that they still can't use force to enter a property. The other reality is the person being detained, whether they're legal or not, in America, the judicial system honors the Fifth Amendment, whether you are a legal citizen or not, and you do not have to speak. You don't have to say anything, but that doesn't prevent you from being arrested by ICE. They have the upper hand, and they do have the ability to arrest you and take you in, whether or not you speak and defend yourself or not. So it is interesting. A lot of the things we've talked about, do illegals have more rights even than citizens do? And what the belief system is in the administration, the Trump administration, is no. But what the belief system appeared to be under the Biden administration was absolutely 100%. Let us roll out the Republic, house you, feed you, we're going to give you everything. Please come here illegally, and you can own guns without even ever going through processes, nothing. Like you get special treatment under the Biden administration. The Trump administration is basically get the hell out of here. And need to get you and physically remove you. And that's what's going on. But it's not without constitutional protections, even for those who are illegally in this country. So I want to make sure people understand that. I
Yeah.
have not had people pulling up. I remember that we saw videos, but I don't even know if those were true. Now that we saw videos of people supposedly being picked up, remember that, in vans. Do you remember that in like
Oh, yeah.
2020 or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have no idea if it was true or real. I don't know. I don't know. Now I don't know because now I know there's a lot of things that people have put out that haven't been true in order to create outrage circus. So I'm not positive on that. But anyway, I just wanted to put that out there for people so they know there. It's not a free for all. ICE is not having a free for all.
Well,
as far as we can tell.
yeah, when you peek a door opened to the government, historically, if we understand what the government does, is they kick that door wide open and they never shut it again. So, for example, they peeked the door open during the Civil War to fund the Civil War. So we need to start a federal income tax. Do you know what the federal income tax started out as? What's that?
2%?
1%.
Oh.
1%. So, people are like, okay, that doesn't sound bad. So the government didn't close the door after the Civil War ended. They booted it open. That's what happens. That's my concern. So my default is to say less government interference. I know we have a problem. So the problem is we've got one side of the aisle in particular, but it's really both, but one in particular who wants to flood this country with illegals from Somalia, Venezuela, Mexico, you name it. China, I mean, it's crazy. They want to. But then we have the other side, and this has historically been us and what the right represents, law and order. Bring in the law enforcement, bring them in, crack down. We've seen this movie before, though, and we saw it under none other than Obama. We saw it under Bill Clinton. They, at least purportedly, deported millions of people. That's what at least they say, and that's what we've been told. That happens as a way for them to take more taxpayer money. to fund what they tell us they're doing with the taxpayer money, which they aren't, but we believe they are. That's a different, rabbit trail. But let's fund more government. Well, it's for our peace and safety, of course, every time. So according to, like you were talking about earlier, the 14th Amendment or 10th Amendment is, get these guys in here and get these illegals out. If we could trust, if we had history of the government doing that, okay, for 6 months, you've got, call it martial law or whatever it is they're going to call it, come in, clean house, and get out. We could do it, but I don't trust them. I don't trust everyone in this administration, and I certainly wouldn't trust it if it were in, the left's hands as well. So,
and I don't think that's like that is the way it's supposed to be. It's not a new thought or a new theory. Government is a necessary evil. We're all supposed to be questioning them and doubting what they're doing because that is the nature of government. If we give ourselves over to them, then we do have a king, and we don't retain personal autonomy anymore. We don't have individual interest anymore. If you're giving up or surrendering your ideals and your future, your possibilities, your consumption, your livelihood, everything over to the government, you have no self-determination left. So it's not new what you're saying. I think there just needs to be a real return to it. Trump is let's talk about President Trump for a moment, because I think what you're I mean, I don't know. You tell me, but I think that there is way less this time around of Big Daddy Trump will fix everything, even though he's fixing a lot of things. I just want to throw that out there. He is fixing a lot of things that have needed to be fixed and needed to be changed and pulled down. And then there are things that he's doing that people just don't like, and we'll talk about that too. But he is way less this God figure this term than last term, in my opinion. I have seen way more intensive criticism of him this time around. Maybe it was the Israel subject that kind of got people really being way more critical of him. I'm here for it. Be critical of him. You should be paying attention to what the president of the United States is doing and decide what you think about what he's doing. So I don't think that I'm not as concerned about that. I'm not as concerned about people seeing Trump as a god this time around. I am still concerned, though, that people aren't taking their personal responsibility serious. We were talking this morning, and I was like, we still have fluoride in our local water. What are we doing?
Yeah, and I think this would help, and this is what has helped me in regards to the Trump issue. And some people will take offense at this. I don't care anymore. Trump is compromised. Just like every single president we've had has been compromised. JFK was compromised. Ronald Reagan was compromised. Ronald Reagan was threatened with his life, and I believe that's what happened during this assassination attempt, was you better get in line. So, okay, Trump is compromised. That's part of the equation. That's not the whole thing. What you're saying is, or I think what you've said before, maybe not right now, but is don't throw the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing. Like, if he is compromised, it's this conspiratorial framework that we tend to get into, where we just say Trump's compromised, it's all over, no one's coming to save you, he's not who he said he was, and done, end of story. It's all been a big conspiracy and a deception. I don't think that's the right way to frame this. I think you frame it with both and, not either or. So the way that I've framed this in my mind, I've told you this a number of times, it's been a dream I had after we spent time with DJT at a private dinner 3 or 4 years ago, whenever that was, and I had a dream, and in the dream there were two Trumps, and it validated to me, and I won't go into details of the dream right now, which is really interesting, but it validated to me that there's two entities at play here. And if you see Trump more as an iconic figure rather than just, regular, we know that whatever Trump historically has been, he's been a regular man, but as the president, he's more of an iconic figure, he's more of an entity. And I see him as an entity that does some really good things, and from my perspective, does some really bad things. And you tend to scream,
tell
where's the good Trump?
Though. Yeah, but tell me what the bad things are.
I think what the biggest complaint right now from people that were truly make America great again. Well, that's what I'm going to say. Yeah, I think from my limited perspective, it's the idea of going in and doing regime changes again. So it's his policies as far as getting us back into war. It's going in and taking out some character that nobody's ever heard of in Venezuela, rather than going across the street
Wait a minute.
or across his office and taking
That's not
out
a
the
character
people that
nobody's
have been
ever heard of.
controlling this horrible deep state operation from within the United States itself. So I think you asked me, I'm just trying to give you an answer. You can argue with me in just a second, and that's fine. You don't have to agree.
Yeah.
But I think that's my perspective and many of our perspectives. And I'm repeating those as well, like MTG and Massey, who would agree that what are we doing in foreign affairs with Israel? What are we doing teasing the idea of taking out Iran? What are we doing helping fund Israel to blow up cities and hospitals and have countless victims? Why are we constantly kind of bowing to the feet of Benjamin Netanyahu? And then the Venezuela thing has thrown me for a loop. I know there's all kinds of reasonings for it, but I just think that we should be focusing on actually cleaning house from within. And so far, we haven't seen that. The people that have...
We can't clean house from within when another country is interfering in our elections and stealing our elections. Maduro and Chavez before him have been stealing our elections for almost 20 years, maybe longer, but at least 20 years. You cannot
That's
have
fine.
a constitutional republic. We have descended into a banana republic because New World Order representatives are running our freaking country, selected with the help of Maduro and his freaking Venezuelan Dominion voting machines. So
Yeah,
that's
and if you-
not a fair
but-
analysis without the real story, which was always about elections. President
That's
Trump
what you're
didn't go there
saying the
because-
real story is. And I think that's great if that's true. I don't know if that's the real story or not.
I mean, it's
That's
happening right now.
what's happening.
That's why we're able to finally start making arrests right now. That's why Tulsi Gabbard is in Georgia right now, filling out and following through on the seizures of the voting records there because there is foreign interference that they've known about. Maduro has been being questioned on his role in the theft of our elections here in America. I know that for an absolute fact. That's been the majority of the time they've used is to take up who was involved, who was doing it, and how were they doing it? How are they procuring our elections here in America? And I am really glad that you're bringing up these points because you're exactly right. This is the rhetoric that's online. And some of it's going to be true just because we're just not, there's just going to be things people don't agree about. I think Israel's a really big deal. Obviously, you've talked a lot about that. I think it's a really big deal. And it is upset, but you did forget Epstein.
I didn't forget Epstein. I haven't finished.
Did I cut you off?
I really only gave
sorry.
you one or two things. And
Three.
okay, great. Then from a peasant perspective, if they're going in there because Venezuela is the heart of the machines and we're going to clean house, great. We will see how that works out in the upcoming elections, if that's truly what they're doing. And it would be nice if they would communicate that clearly with the people, or maybe they're involved at such deep clandestine operations that they just can't tell publicly what we're doing, and they have to make it all about oil or energy or overturning a communistic, tyrannical regime into a democracy. I think we've been down that road before too. And I think many of the American people, especially the Make America First Great crowd, the true crowd, not that's been all subverted. It's been hijacked. The MAGA's been hijacked by the Ben Shapiros of the world as if they're MAGA. It's so silly. But I think it needs to be communicated then. But what you're saying is, well, what's actually happening is this. I don't think that's being communicated to the American people. Maybe there's a reason for that, but it's not. Now, that brings up the other point that you just mentioned. I think people are very grieved, and rightly so, about the Epstein stuff. I think that it's very likely that Trump is compromised, either himself or someone in his family, and that's why, and there's something that they're trying to hide. It's very likely that Trump was trying some decades ago that he was working as an FBI asset or a three-letter agency asset, and that during that time, I don't know if he was or not, but I think that I know that. If he was working as an asset, I think it's likely that at some point in there, as many of these assets do, they get compromised. And we all know that Trump's not, and he never heralded himself as a moral man. I mean, he's a billionaire living a billionaire lifestyle. We've all sort of hoped that it's not as bad as it could be, and I hope it's not that bad. But I think it's a shame when you had Trump Jr., you had J.D. Vance, you had Trump himself saying prior to the election, the Epstein files should be released. And Trump Jr. said the only reason why and Kash Patel said the only reason why the Epstein files haven't been released is because they are protecting pedophiles. So that's out of their own words, their own mouth. So I think that's another reason. Those are other reasons why people are becoming disgruntled with Trump, that he's not fulfilling the promise to not be involved in international wars, to take America's sovereignty back, which you can lay out some ways that he is doing that. I'm not saying he's not doing anything good. You asked me about what are the grievances people have, and I'm just giving the answers, and I'm included in that as well. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I want to go back to the wars, because there isn't a war with Venezuela. We went in and took the head of the country out, so there was no war. And transition of power was smooth to the second in command that we don't even like, but that would be the natural order of things, just so you know.
Yeah,
America
so
doesn't
the
like-
transition was
America doesn't like-
smooth to the
Yeah.
second in command, who is another shill
This
for
Venez-
Israel. And that's fine. That's
You
fine.
don't know that, and I don't know that. You
Oh
hear
yeah,
me?
well that's what she's publicly said. So I mean,
She
that's
said I'm a shill for Israel.
oh, she's publicly said I can't wait to go to Israel and I can't wait to support the Israeli cause. She said that, and the one that was just taken out was just. I mean,
He's not
it
been
just so
taken out.
happens,
He's
probably
staying
just
in New York
probably
jail.
just
Hang on.
coincidence that he was taken
wasn't
out from.
out. He's not dead. He wasn't.
I didn't
taken
say
out.
he
They
was
didn't
dead,
kill him.
but the one who was
Didn't
taken
kill him.
out was publicly saying or publicly condemning Benjamin Netanyahu and what's going on in Israel. So that's kind of odd too. So, but the wars that we are in and the billions of dollars that we're giving, I mean, you know,
wars are we
while,
What wars are
you know,
we in?
even just recently, $6 billion was given by the U.S. to Israel for Israeli war jets. And this is all happening while we're distracted with everything else that's going on. And people don't think it's a big deal, but it's actually a huge deal. And there's ones like Thomas Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene who obviously aren't on the inner circle, because it seems like if you speak against it, you're attacked by both the left and the right. And, you know, as Trump recently called both of them traitors and things like that. So that's another reason why some people are disgruntled about some of the things that Trump is doing and standing for.
Okay. All right. Let's take it one by one. Epstein, I don't think we have, in my opinion, I don't think we have a real honest answer yet on Epstein. What I have been told, and I shared this with you, with people who had seen the Epstein files and actually were directly representing the man who provided those files to the FBI, said it wasn't Trump that was under that needed to be worried. It was his donors. His donors are featured throughout the Epstein files. And one of those being having his name, Michael Malkin, on, the building. The Malkin building is next to the White House. And Michael Milken is, that's his family. That's his name on that building, or his family's name on that building. Massive donor to President Trump. And he is one of them that is named throughout the Epstein files. And it's a very big deal because he is a massive mover and shaker in Washington, D.C. So that's just one example. You have Alan Dershowitz, who has faithfully come to the aid of the president over and over and over. And we know for a fact, according to the Franklin scandal and the flight log that is posted in the book, that he was there at least 26 times on Epstein Island. And Alan Dershowitz was a mentor, obviously, to General Bondi out of Florida, because Alan Dershowitz comes from Florida. A.G. Bondi grew up in Florida under Dershowitz's guidance. And so that's, upsetting. And Dershowitz has been the only, Democrat attorney that has, or a Democrat period, that sided with President Trump in the 2020 election. We kind of know what a schmoozy he is. He takes money and runs, but okay, whatever. So there's going to be people in there. That's the only logical reason I've been given for why the files have not been released the way that we hoped that they would be. And actually right now I did just pull up just to see like what's the latest thing on here. And Congress did pass the vote that said that the documents could be released. That was a big deal. There was congressional issue. The grand jury, the judge in the grand jury trials had to release the grand jury files and hadn't, or grand jury test. What is it called? What are they called? Script or whatever it's called. And the judge had not done that at that time. The judge has done that now. The Congress has voted to release the files. And so now we're still just waiting. And I think that
in all honesty about this, they are going to, execution and legal choke points. They're going to hope that other things keep coming up and blocking the exposure of the Epstein files. And I don't know what to do about that. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but they're not allowing it. So I'll start with that and I'll give you that for certain.
So many mistakes made along the way with that. And Pam Bondi totally choked. I mean, Kash Patel's totally choked. They seem like they're running off of fear. They seem like they're totally controlled. And it even seems like Trump is getting frustrated with, I mean, it doesn't seem like it. Trump has publicly displayed his frustration with Pam Bondi, at least. It's just odd, and too many dumb things happen where, we've got it in a folder at our desk and we're sharing it with a certain amount of conservative influencers, and we're all like holding up our folder. It was just stupid. It was nonsense. And at this point, Sharona, I don't even know if they said everything's released and redacted, which they're not. I don't think they'll ever do. How do we even know we're getting the real thing? I have no idea. I mean, at this point, it's all so muffled, probably by design.
I would go with the grand jury scripts no matter what at this point.
Yeah.
I wouldn't probably go with anything that the FBI directly releases. I would go with the grand jury scripts. It's where you're going to get the majority of this. So here's just a reality on that too. Not all of the judges have released that information. They've done incremental releases, which we saw that's where they made fun of President Trump, showed the pictures of him being at the parties, all that. They've been heavily redacted. The judges are requiring that. And then judges are also re-reviewing the grand jury transcripts to make sure of what needs to be done in order to bring it forward. So that is a judicial process, not necessarily Pam Bondi, but I don't know. I think you can kind of read between the lines. I think the right hand talks to the left hand. And I think, all of a sudden a judge says, I need a little more time to review it. I've been backed up with cases. You know what I'm saying? So I think that game's going to continue to be played. Can we come back to Venezuela for just a minute? Because this is really, really critical. So Venezuela, we have two things, Maduro and the Dominion voting machines being created there. Everybody who lives in Dallas County, Texas knows that the person who ran their elections was the right hand for Dominion voting machines in Venezuela, who was helping to steal the elections in Venezuela. And then he was hired here in America to work in Dallas County. It got really hot for him in November, and he left his position in November. And then after that, obviously, that came into play with Maduro and Dominion. And I mean, if you've been following the story of the Dominion voting machines, you are not surprised at all that Maduro, I wondered when it was going to happen, why it hadn't happened already. He knows where the bodies are buried. The national community was compelled to hold him accountable, and they refused. Do you guys realize that? The international community was compelled to hold Maduro accountable for stealing America's elections, and they refused. The EU refused. China refused. Russia refused. Nobody would hold Venezuela accountable. See, America goes and bends backwards for every other country out there in the whole world, and nobody ever comes to bat for us. And I see that. Like, we see it firsthand. We know how this all plays out, which is fine. That's totally fine. So I think as a point of President Trump finally needing to get the most solid information and a firsthand witness in the stolen election of 2020 and 22. We remember that we had key Senate races that have made our Senate completely retarded, and congressional races as well. And those races were, there was a ton of debate about whether or not they were legit, which I don't think they were, because I think the New World Order is setting up their team in our country. And they were using Maduro as home base in Venezuela to do it with Dominion. We already know that they were switching. We already know this. This is factual testimony now. At least it's factual testimony, court, under oath in court, saying these machines were being flipped from Venezuela, from Serbia, and I believe one more place. So it's not up for debate anymore. Eric Coomer has been deposed this past week. He had tried this goes right into this. I know. Eric Coomer tried to avoid answering. He asked his attorneys to ask the judge that he not be deposed on his relationship with Venezuela and Serbia.
Wow.
And then there was literally there was a physical altercation between Patrick Byrne's attorney, which is Peter Tickton. We've all seen Peter Tickton. He's been representing and helping, assisting with Tina's case. And Eric Coomer's attorney, who is actually Dominion's attorney, by the way, they had a fist fight. They got into a fist fight on Monday because Eric Coomer did not want to answer any questions or be deposed on any questions related to Venezuela and Serbia. Why do you think that is? It's too late for him, though. Like, we have it all now. We have Maduro sitting in New York City trying to figure out what's in his best interest. Maybe he would like to go retire in the Cayman Islands. President Trump was not interested in starting a war in Venezuela, and he did not allow Marco Rubio to do that. And I know a lot of people, I think Marco Rubio would have loved to have dropped a couple bombs or whatever. I don't think he's trying to kill the people, but you know what I'm saying. I think he would have been absolutely fine with doing that stuff, but he wasn't. And it didn't happen. They simply went in strategically, took Maduro out. Nobody died. No war. That's the whole goal. No war. We're done with this. We're going to precision target as we know we can, and we're going to take these people out, and they're going to answer for their crimes here in America, since the international community will not help us. The second thing about Venezuela, so that's the voting machines. Let's talk about oil, because that is obviously a big deal, and people are not wrong. President Trump publicly stated, we are taking the oil. We will do with it what we please. And then he decided they've made a commission and the return on the oil will be somehow re-implemented back in Venezuela. They'll have to figure that out. There's been the ongoing joke that Marco Rubio is the new president of Venezuela and Cuba and whatever else. Maybe so. They're joking about that, but you never know. Why did they take the oil? In the Western Hemisphere, this has been the thing. So in some of the businesses that we're involved in too, I think I've been wanting to know their perspective. They work in this region of the world, and China and China primarily, they have gotten their oil from who? Venezuela. Venezuela has been helping them and keeping them fully charged so that they continue to be an adversary to the United States, and it's just not going to go on anymore. I think there's just a point where President Trump said it. He didn't shy away from it. And he said, yeah, we're taking the oil. And that's what we're going to do. We're not allowing China to have any say in this hemisphere anymore. And apparently there's no problem with that because no judge sanctioned them and nobody has tried to stop that process. I think they attempted it briefly and it was shot down, and that's the end of the story. So there's a reality here that what you're saying on its face is not wrong. Yeah, we went in and took Maduro out, brought him to the States. We've taken their oil, and they're going to be held accountable for stealing our elections. To me, when I hear that, I'm like, yes, let's do this. I'm so tired of a banana republic in this country. I'm tired of wondering if the next thing I say is going to get us a knock at our door. I'm tired of trannies being able to tell me I can't talk about their perversions and their disgusting behavior. Like, I'm sick of being told what I can and can't do in this country as a free person. And I think our nation as a whole, in the whole world, I think President Trump feels the same way about our country. Sick of other people telling us what we are or aren't going to do. We are free people. We are a free country. We are self-determining, and we're no longer going to be a part of this world order. I appreciate what you're saying, though, and the frustrations are real for people. Israel. I'm just going to give my take on this. I don't know enough to have a real intelligent response to it, but what I've seen, I absolutely deplore. I will never ever support Israel's going after American citizens and our First Amendment protections. Period. It's wrong. You're completely right. It is fundamental and foundational to a free society that you be able to say what you believe. And I talked about, and I've shared this already, being in a meeting and a Jewish lobbyist, not even a Jew, supposedly a Christian, an Israel lobbyist, telling everybody that they're working with big tech to shut down any oppositional talk, any oppositional speech about Israel on big tech and Meta. And I'm the only person in the whole room full of senators and representatives not standing up and clapping. So, no, right? Why are we letting another country take away our free speech protections? Why are we doing this? It's fundamental. It's foundational to a free society. And so it has to stop. My hope is the players got played. My hope is President Trump has allied. Obviously, the biggest donors he has, Marian Adelson, the biggest donors he has who have made the biggest dent for Israel, for the advancement of Israel in this country, and for, restructuring and remodeling of important Washington infrastructures, it's all paid and funded, by Jewish people. And I'm not saying they're bad. I don't think it's wrong that they want to give their money that way. That's fine. Hopefully, there is a measure of like calming the beast here that keeps trying to infiltrate our free society. We actually have a free society here. They do not have a free society there. And I think it needs to stop. I'm so not, I'm so,
Who
they're going
doesn't
to do
have a
what they
free
do.
society? You mean Israel?
Israel does not have a free society. You cannot
Well,
say what you
yeah,
want
I
here.
mean, it's a
Mhm.
little bit, I mean, that's, yeah, we are under the guise of a free society here. We realized,
Oh,
especially in 2020, that, go ahead.
no, because no, we are free. We have decided we are free. I'm not going to say anymore that I can't say or go or do because some, somebody with a lot of money or a lot of power over our government tells us we can't talk about that. I applaud it. I want people to talk about it. So go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So no, I think, yeah, we've been under this guise for a very long time, and we're starting to figure out, as we did in 2020, that when people have power to tell you you can and can't go to the grocery store, can and can't go to church, can or cannot go play in the park, can't go to a school board meeting, all those things, you're like, oh, I guess I don't have the freedoms that we supposedly have. And then you realize, oh, I have to pay taxes on my house to the government like I pay rent, and if I don't pay my rent to the government, they come and take my home, that kind of thing. I mean, there's a lot of things we can go on and on and on about that. There's a lot of things where we say we're living free and we're actually not. And I think that there's a part of Trump that wants to truly bring back the freedom to the United States, that there is a part of Trump that's working against the corporation that we know is the corporation of the United States, that's working for we the people, which we the people are the actual patriotic founding fathers United States. And so I get what you're saying, and that it all sounds good. Yeah, I mean, if taking out, this Venezuelan president is going to ensure that we have the rights to
He
speak
didn't take him out.
about LGBTQ. I already clarified that. I know that he's not dead, but he's been taken out. And so if that's going to give us assurance that we get to have freedom of speech and we get to talk about LGBTQ plus stuff and we get our elections back, then great. I hope that's what happens. I just have a feeling that the corruption is in Washington, D.C. and not necessarily in Venezuela, as far as the corruption that we should be most concerned about. I have a feeling that the corruption is right here in the current corporation that all of us have been abiding under for many, many decades. And I think that there's, at least from what Trump has said, there's a part of him that wants to free people from that and really open up people's minds, because he can't do it. He can't save us. He can't free people. Only we the people can take our freedoms back. But he can be like, sort of like open the gate to it and show us that it's possible for us to go through. So I do agree that he has done some good things. I just think it's yet to be seen how some of these things come to fruition. I'm very, very calloused and skeptical because I've been through, the Iraqi Operation Freedom, Iraqi Operation, Liberation, or whatever it was that spelled oil. And at that time, Bush said it's not about oil. I don't know if it was about oil. We were told it was about weapons of mass destruction, and we all fell for that as conservatives. And now we have a Republican president, at least, will say, telling us that, yeah, it's about the oil. That's fine. Do I believe that? I don't know. I mean, there's so much speculation out there. It's hard to even say, all right, this is what it's about. And it's about us getting our freedom back and us getting our elections back. I hope so, but I just think it's going to take some time for this to play out and see if that's for real or not. And how do you fight other countries and their corruption if it's right here in the midst of us, while he's seemingly taking his enemies, his greatest opponents, he's seemingly taking them by his side and butting up to them? Maybe there's a strategy that I don't understand, and that could be, but I don't like it.
Yeah,
I don't like it at all.
I want to tell you the strategy. Every parent out there will understand this strategy. So in the house, most of the time, I'm the bad guy and you're the good guy, right? Most of the time, my approach is full frontal assault. Not really assault, you guys, but full frontal attack on whatever naughtiness our children are doing. But my husband prefers, even though the child has been very naughty, very bad, like you're grounded for life, basically. Like, don't come out of your room ever. Not my husband. My husband takes his arm around them and says, "What are you doing? It doesn't have to be like this." Very Trumpish approach, I might add. And that's what's going on. Because if you full frontal assault, what happens? What happens, Neil? You've watched it happen, and you've tried to coach me on more diplomacy, more diplomatic pathways with our children. This is the truth, right? You have said, if if do you want an enemy or do you want to help them get through this? I believe it's exactly the same thing that's going on. And it's incomprehensible. It's actually, I'm surprised that you're having a hard time with his approach more than me, because this strategy would be way more you than it would ever be me. I would be full frontal. I think when we realized like that nobody had ever called the North Korean dictator ever, like 2 administrations had never even called him and talked to him ever. And Trump was like, well, I'm just going to call him and see if we can meet. And then everybody's like, "He's meeting with a dictator. Oh my gosh, he's gonna become a like, he was doing literally what you would have done with our kids. I would have been stonewalling and giving everybody the cold shoulder and like, "I hate you all. I'll never talk to you again." Not I don't really do that with our kids, but I'm just saying like that mentality. And you would have been the one saying, let's just sit down. Let's reason this through." I believe that's the only approach that's gotten it's the only thing that's gotten any effect in this world, in this Trump disrupting the world order, is
Yeah,
because his approach is so
yeah,
disarming.
you have a
Disarming.
point. You definitely have a point. The only thing I would really say is that people have had their family members have been slaughtered by people that he's, buddying up with. Cities have been
Who are you
destroyed.
talking about? Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about what happened starting in 2020, mainly.
Okay, it doesn't help us for you to talk in circles because I don't know what you're talking about. And I think that's a really big accusation to make without what are you talking about?
Oh, okay. I'll be specific. Bill Gates, Anthony Fauci, and company, Joe Biden and whatever he was, the head of the WHO, the head of the CDC, these players that ensured that people were dying en masse during this time. I think that's what people have a problem with. I know certainly I do, where Trump is in the same room as them, having these nice meetings, rather than prosecuting them. We still haven't seen any arrests, and I think that's the difference, between trying to restore your own child who took a cookie out of the cookie jar when they shouldn't have, than trying to buddy up to mass murderers and things like that. So, yeah, I think and maybe there's a game at play, and maybe it's all going to happen, but I've seen a big slowdown in the talk and the hopium about there being military tribunals. These people were taken out. They were,
I think
all that kind of stuff.
fake. I think that was fake. I think that was
Well,
designed to keep us from doing anything, like you said initially, that we're supposed to be operating on a local level. I think a lot of that stuff was intended to keep the citizenry dormant because
it
they
might
were
be.
taking care of it.
It might be, but Trump is also the one that told us that Joe Biden was taken out and killed in 2020, and that the last 4 years of his tyrannical ruling was a fake Biden. I don't know what to do with that.
Right.
Was Trump lying, or was I mean, I have no idea. I don't know what to do with that. People just glossed right over it. That's very Q-ish, and I haven't been a Q follower. I have followed what Q says, and much a part of that may have been a psychological operation as well. But when you have the president of the United States saying that the previous president wasn't even the real president, I don't know. And we're living in very frustrating times. At some point, somebody has to just stand up and be honest with the American people and let the fallout come what may. You know what I mean? Because we can't keep living under fakeness. And now with AI and everything, you watch videos online like this most recent ICE stuff with this pretty guy or whatever, and the good lady, which people are saying it was a pretty good psyop. I don't even know what's real and what's not. You have videos coming out, you can't even tell. So I can't tell. And when the president tells us something like, hey, we went in, we took out Maduro. I'm not saying they killed him. They took him out. They took him. Nobody was killed. There was an operation in the middle of the night where we shut off their power, basically. And they have, that's a lot of power. That's a lot of authority they have. I guess we just trust what he says. That's true, because I can't verify it. And but I question it. Just like we used to trust, whatever Bush said. I guess that's true. I mean, it was a couple of raggedy old, extreme Muslims that took out the Twin Towers, that did the greatest, the biggest terrorist attack in history, and we just kind of all believed it. So, I don't know. Do we just believe Trump because he's Trump? I don't know.
Well, let's switch gears for the last few minutes of our time.
Okay, I am on a time. I'm on a time. Like I got to go here pretty quick. So
I know. Well, we have our last 5 minutes. It looks like currency.
Oh,
I want to talk about money.
Oh man,
talk about money and what's going on in America and the world with money. Can you break it down for us? Is Bitcoin the mark of the beast? The New World Order money?
Oh well,
a stable coin, which is cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Right? Is it the New World Order system?
Yeah, I think everything we're living under is the mark of the beast. And I don't mean that in a literal sense. I really don't. I think spiritually speaking, like as people when people talk about is so and so the Antichrist, every president that rises up is the Antichrist. Everybody's always thought the next president's the Antichrist. The Bible says that there are many antichrists, and that was 2,000 years ago, or so we are told, that there's many antichrists. There's a lot of antichrists. There's lots of marks of the beast. There was the mark of the beast during the first century when Nero was an antichrist, and he was killing Christians, and he had his face imprinted on the gold on the coins of the time, and you couldn't buy or sell without having these coins with Nero's face printed on it. That sounds like the mark of the beast to me, and Nero sounds like the Antichrist or an Antichrist. This has been cycling through for many generations, and it's cycling through in ours now too. So crypto is and it isn't. I mean, credit cards are the same thing, basically. We're using fake money. We've been using fake money for a long time. If you're afraid to use crypto, then you ought to be afraid to use credit cards. If you're afraid to use credit cards, you ought to be afraid to use cash, because guess what? Cash is not money. And if you look up the statutory code on what money is defined as gold and silver. That's what money is. Whatever this green piece of paper we've been printing up for so long is, it's not money. Now, here's the thing, and I know that I could go on forever about this, and you and I have talked about this. If people believe it's money, that's what gives it its value, because it's not backed by anything. And even when it was supposedly backed by gold or backed by the petrodollar, which ended in the 1970s, it's still not money. It's an IOU. It always has been. And but now it's not backed by anything, so it's even more so not money than even what it used to be. But if you're afraid of it, then you shouldn't be using cash. So what's the alternative? And that's what I would ask people. I'm not giving financial advice. What I'm saying is there's been something that has been tried and true for thousands of years. God's money is gold, and God's given man to exchange money through silver. So you have, man's exchange that God gave through silver. God's wealth is like visibly seen by gold. The sun is gold, and people have had value in gold and silver and other precious metals for thousands of years. They have intrinsic value, and so that's what I would say. We're seeing the craziness of the ups and downs of silver right now. The growth of silver's gone up. I don't know if people realize this, about 400% just over the last year or two. And even the last few months, it's gone up a couple 100% because the faith is being lost in the dollar. The dollar no more has value. People are just realizing it doesn't have value, but there's still the controllers screwing with the silver. It should be, I believe, in 4 digits. It's gone from like over the last couple of years, around $20 an ounce up to, I think the highest has been $117 an ounce recently. And from everything I can tell, it should be in the 4 digits. It should be worth in the thousands per ounce, and gold should be in the tens of thousands, which is heading toward. So yeah, that's where we're at. And crypto, I mean, you know as much about it as I do. When I started researching it years ago, I knew nothing. I still feel like the more you learn about it, the less you know. But they're actually building, and they have sites built to mine crypto and make it a physical asset that you can see. That's Bitcoin in particular. And then, you know, there's all the X's, the XRPs and others, which we're going toward that, whether people like it or not. If you want to see it as the mark of the beast, you can, if you frame it that way. And I don't think there is, and that's a whole different subject. I won't even go down the rabbit hole. But if you see that as the mark of the beast, then you have to see credit cards as the mark of the beast, and even the dollar as the mark of the beast, because it's all the same. You can't buy or sell without this imprinted dollar that has a pyramid and the all-seeing eye on the back of it that represents Freemasonry, represents Satanism. You're using that already to buy and sell. Or you use the credit card. You can't buy and sell unless it's got this mark, this strip across it that you go, and it's it. Or eventually, and people are already using it, there's a little implanted chip that if you go into the store, you can just run it across your thing. I think these things are much more spiritual than we give credence to, and I think these things have already happened in our past, and we're just seeing it cycle through again. So it's more about your internal belief system and how we're viewing these things. That's kind of my bird's eye view of what's going on right now.
Fantastic. So
there's a lot there, though. Oof.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I mean, wow. Yeah, we're gonna have to clip that. That was good. Well, it's been a pleasure.
I can say a lot without saying much. That's one of the things that I've grown really good at. But anyway, yeah, it's been good. I like the saltiness. I like the debate between us. I think that's good. So we're not just an echo chamber in here.
Yeah, we don't agree.
No,
if anybody's wondering, we're not in agreement on President Trump, and we're sorting through the things that are going on, but we are in alignment. Can we be in alignment without being in agreement? Well,
but to me, it goes back to duality, because we do agree. I just think there's more than one thing going on here. There's more than one Trump going on. That's what I mean. So I think we do agree about good things that he's doing, and I wouldn't argue with some of that. But I'm not as quick to defend. I don't feel any need to, like I have before, defend these presidents and rulers and stuff like that. I don't have it. They can defend themselves. I'm not a spokesperson for Trump. That's why I don't go on social media and just blast the left and praise Trump all the time. I just don't fall into that. It's too binary for me, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I totally get that. And then I also realize, and you've been there too, and you've heard these people speaking when we've gone to other countries, and they see President Trump and they say he is the president of the world. And when he was elected, you cannot deny this. After he was elected, in less than a year, the trajectory to literally take over mankind over in Europe, to take every element of their life, to implement social credit score, queerize every single child, do all this insanity, it's over.
Yeah.
And that happened because President Trump was elected.
I agree with that. I agree. And the one last thing I'll say, though, and why I'm there's a couple reasons why I'm so I talk sometimes like I have a chip on my shoulder. It's because of our personal experience that we've gone through that has not been rectified. And this is going to scales, really big scales that we haven't yet talked about, that we'll probably talk about here at some point. But number two, Trump disrupted, I do believe from 2016 to 2020, Trump disrupted the plans. And I'm thankful for that. But then I saw how quickly things changed from another administration. And so I'm just saying, I don't want the small things. If Trump and team are for real, if good Trump is really going to do good things and bring us back to, I would say, like a pre-1871 type of actual free living, it has to be done on such a massive scale that it can't be undone so quickly, because our tyranny started after Trump #1 was in office for 4 years. That's when our tyranny started.
Yeah, they were
And that's
like,
what I'm afraid of.
like,
I mean,
you
20
think you're gonna, you think you're gonna disrupt our order? I mean, the
I know.
retaliation was
And
massive.
are they going to come back in 2028 with a vengeance? I have no idea. I don't know the future. I don't know. I mean, 2028 seems like way far away, but it's right around the corner. So I'm skeptical, and that's why I think it's our responsibility to say we demand that our elected servants make arrests, change, stop the taxation, the theft taxation, and the Fed. We wanted, remember what we wanted? We thought Trump was going to get in. I thought the FBI was going to be dismantled. I thought the IRS was going to be dismantled. Now, maybe the IRS is being dismantled. Maybe it is. And guess what? Good Trump. He just came out and said, we're done with the WHO, the World Health Organization. It has nothing to do with health. Yeah, it has everything to do with hell. Because the World Health Organization, all they do, what that organization was started to do was to open up the pits of hell and throw anybody and everybody they possibly could into it. Trump's closed that pit. And that's awesome.
That's good. That's winning.
Yes. Yeah.
The IRS,
Yep. And the IRS is
get 86,000 guns. Remember when they were going to have guns, you guys, and come to our like,
they were preparing, like, so yeah, I mean, no doubt, I think he's dismantled that. And I don't even know, people are wondering if there's even still an IRS in existence, which I don't know. I don't even know where it's at. Millions and millions of people are even, they're not even participating in the IRS anymore. That's a huge win. And then with RFK, as you've been a big defender of him, and I appreciate that because you reel me back in, he's doing some really good stuff. And I do think that he's dismantling the CDC. And so those are huge things. Those are big wins. We got to support the wins, but I think this has to be done to a degree, a biblical degree, Sharona, because they're still spraying our skies. They're still manipulating the weather. Those aren't conspiracies. That's out there now. There's huge things that are happening. This has to be stopped now, because otherwise I feel like we're just poking the beast, and the beast is going to come back. we're going to have lots of problems in a couple of years if that's true. So we better finish the job. That's what I'm saying.
That's exactly the problem right there. You're exactly right. So what is being done? I guess we need to understand that on a visceral level to secure the republic. And it's all about, it always comes back down to elections, doesn't it?
Yep.
Like our ability to determine our own representation. So it's very good. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to see you today.
Yeah, thank you for joining me. I'm glad we're back, because it just wasn't the same me talking to myself.
No, and if people knew, there's so much going on behind the scenes. At some point, we'll be able to, whatever. But it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay.
Now go pay the man.
Oh, I'm going
Neil's
to right now.
walking into the lion's den right now.
Oh yeah, pray for me.
Yeah, pray for him big time. Thank you. All right, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed a couple of hours today of talking about things that are important, that mean life and death to us in America. And remember to take your authority seriously. God gave it to us. He has done something so beautiful with creating humanity. He created us with self-determination, the second greatest gift he's given to us, the first being the Lord Jesus Christ. And we need to utilize that. We have no one to blame but ourselves if we are not thriving in this incredible time right now. So go out, do what God made you to do, and we will see you guys back here. Hopefully next week. We have a lot going on next week and a lot of travel. So hopefully we can swing it. And if not, then we will see you back here the following week. You guys take care. Please share the commander's story everywhere. And don't forget to buy the book, The Mouths of the Wicked. You can find it on what is it? puffinpublishers.com or bookbaby.com. Go get it today. Help this amazing guy spread his story everywhere. It serves as literally the indictment against that administration, the Biden administration, Chris Wray, Merrick Garland, even U.S. Marshals who decided to buy into the weaponization against U.S. citizens. So thank you guys. God bless you. We'll see you back here very soon.